Cool, and welcome to this this webinar. I'm really looking forward to share some of these insights about how you can deliver SAP integration in a better way, why it makes sense, what are all the purposes behind this. And as always, we wanted to make it easy. We wanted to give you something that would actually enable you to get started. And our hope is that you on Friday would have moved your first transport to productions using a better way to work process. Let's see. Earlier, or before my vacation, we had, in the beginning of February, we had 2 webinars where we covered how you can use the FIGAF tool in the migration. And there's obviously a lot of nice and interesting things about the tool in those cases. Here we covered a lot of the other parts. Today we want to cover the part in yellow. This is more about how do you actually ensure all your integrations is working, what's going on, who is moving things, handling all the governance. That's something that really speaks into doing a lot of migrations. In a migration, it makes a lot of sense, and I think we may have the link also to this YouTube channel, otherwise it will come in the email tomorrow. So click it here and bookmark it, then we are good to go. Why do you need DevOps? I think that is something that you probably would be asking yourself also. So as I see the market right now, there is a lot of integrations going to be built. Both new integrations that need to be built as you build up your S4 journey, all these things, and obviously you also have all the PI to Integration Suite migration that's going on simultaneously, also taking up a lot of extra resources from the team. And it is really good, really difficult to get developers, and especially if these need to be good. I hope that's not a problem you have, but I have definitely seen that there is a challenge about getting the really good developers to work and think this is good. So I see a lot of these transports. It's not really built optimal, and we also want to be able to reduce the risk whenever we're transporting something. So when you probably are presenting this for your colleagues and friends and saying, hey, yeah, we have let's see here, what's that going on? That's the poll. Yeah, so how do you actually do your transport now would be an interesting thing to explore and see. And obviously, I think one of the things here is obviously it is really difficult to work with SAP Cloud Integration. What's the best way to cover this? There's too many integrations. It's difficult to keep all of the information in one place. I was talking to a customer the other day, and they were saying, well, yeah, if we need to transport more than a few iflows at a time, all these things just makes it too difficult to work with and figure out how do we transport, what's actually the best way to do it. Also, the thing about creating test cases. So we talked with some of us that, yeah, we create test cases in Postman and Bruno, and it works good. We can create them. But the challenge is not to create a test case. The challenge is how do you actually ensure that that they are being updated correctly. So let's just see the result of the survey. So yes, so 50% voted that they're using manual transports. So that means I hope you would be looking into some of these things, and let's see here if I can publish the results. So now you have some idea about what's going on, what people are selecting and why. Okay, cool. a good question is why the FigAff tool is different. And I think in general, one of the approaches we try to cover this, we want to, well, we started out with covering a small topic that was testing, and then we kind of grew the scope because we saw what we could do and what the challenge of integration developers was that there was too many different islands that you were working on, creating some documentations, managing what was going on. I was working at a client at one point in time, and there was like, you need to update something in whatever service now, you need to update something in an Excel sheet and upload something in different places, and all these things was just too complex. We have it all in one tool, making it a lot easier for you to manage. It's something, so if you're concurring with Git, it's something that does not need you needing to do any scripting, any specific development to handle these things. And then it is about creating a common area for all integration developers, making it possible for them to be much more productive. That. Yes. Yes. So obviously when I talk about DevOps, one of the big question is obviously, so this is Git, right? And everybody have different ways of interpreting these things. And I think, yeah, this is also one of these things that is a bit of a challenge. So what is it's, as we see it, Git is an integrated part of your integrations. So one of the big challenges with Git-based development, at least in cloud integration, is this thing: where's the master? Is it the iflow or the UI web UI you're working on, or is it the source code for the BPMN models, etc.? And how do you merge these things? Who owns what, and when do you modify these things? It's a lot different than working on other projects where you can have local versions of the code running and press commit, and then you are able to run these different scenarios. We also do have a poll. I would like to just hear: are you actually using Git in your development at the moment? And yeah, it's when you're comparing to Fiori development or Java development, there's a lot more than just synchronize, publish, commit to a branch that is being transported. And that, I think that is one of the big challenges that a lot of us is facing. How do we work with this? And then obviously, if you start building pipelines, you need to do a lot of scripting. There's some helpers, some tools around that can make it easier, but it is still a lot of things you need to script about how to do this. It can be an awful lot of fun if you like it, but if not, it's probably not the thing you should be focusing on. And no matter how you're working on it, it is definitely going to be a lot different than the way you're delivering Fiori APIs, etc. So why are we different? So on Git and our take on it. So obviously I do think Git really have a lot of value in this, and if you just look at the polls, then most people would be using or is not really using Git at the moment. We have one that is using Git, and obviously pretty interesting to hear how it's going, what's going on. So please write some of your comments to me or in the Q&A. I'd love to get your feedback on how this works. And obviously there's a lot of differences about what level, what are you able to do. our take on it, so the general way that it works is the FIGAF tool will pull all versions of your iflows whenever it detects that there's a new version. We will take this data and we will then commit it into a Git repository, and from that on we can then start using this. When we started this, we saw it more as a file share, where you had all your different iflows, all your artifacts in just one place. Then we figured out, we could also add some integrations with CPI Lint. So if customers want to have pipelines that did more validations on Groovy scripts, etc., that was all possible. We also added documentation. So whenever you created an iflow or made a change, all of that would be synchronized into it. Good. And then we also added some Gradle templates, and the thing about Gradle templates, it gives you a simple way in your UI to edit Groovy scripts. But anyway, I think general development, it's really rare that you would do that. So I think in general, it's the 2 developers in your team that is really doing a lot of Groovy XSLT coding that may be using this, but hopefully we'll show you some other ways that you can work on some of these things. Good. No. So the way we see a landscape is a set of transitions from dev to QA, from QA to production, and we have this this landscape overview here. And in the beginning, when we built CPI, we had like a fixed length landscape that you took out content, moved it from dev to QA to production, and that was a fixed transport. And found out that that was a little of a challenge, because you would often go and do some transports and then you figure out, hey, this should not go into production because it's wrong. And then we needed to create a new transport with all the different artifacts in again and start over. And we found that it was a lot easier and gave a lot more flexibility to just have a landscape consisting of the number of tenants. And then you could go in here. So I could go in here and I could say, like, I want to do these 3, move them from dev to QA. And then once we are done, and we have tested all these things, we have done patch releases, we can go in and we can move the package or a number of iflows, including objects, into production. And this streamlines the production, make it less error prone when you're moving into production, because I guess we have all seen these things that we have 3 dependencies that they are not really connecting correctly. Questions, comments, just put them into, click on the question mark and add them into the Q&A. And then, we have this overview where you can manage the full transition. So another thing, and I think this is at least for the smaller customers. So this is for customers that have less than 200-300 integrations. It's not like a hard limit, but at least it is worth considering. If you're doing a lot of integrations, this may not be for you. But the idea is, when a lot of customers will be reusing the dev tenant also for QA, and this is really good because it saves you money. But the challenge is you end up with iflows that are really difficult to maintain, and you don't really know if you have tested the right version of the iflow or not, because a developer can just go in and make the modification directly in the QA, and you transport that, and as you saw, a lot of you were already using file transport, so it does make it a little more complicated to handle these things. You can set up rules so people would not be able to modify the iflows that are in these QA, virtual QA packages. And if you are on one of these customers with less than 300 integrations, this is by far the simplest business case, that you can drop one integration suite tenant, and then you can get a fully functioning, improved transport system that would make it easier for you to transport, manage, etc. your integration. So I'm not saying it's the only business case, but this is really a simple business case that you can make. One of the concept that we just need to know is that whenever we're transporting things in the FIGAF tool, we are using a ticket. And a ticket is, as we talked about earlier, in a transition between two tenants or two systems. Here you can add all the different artifacts that you want. You can also add the dependencies, what's being used between these two systems. You can have a number of objects that you should be transported. You can add test cases and create, once you have defined this is what you would be using, you also put in a Jira link so you know in Jira what's the reason why you're working on this, because you should not change anything unless there is a good reason to do the change. Someone must have approved or said this is the reason we're doing the change, and that would be Jira or ServiceNow, whatever you have as different options. And once you have created and modified what is it that we want, you create a transport where you can go in and apply all the configurations. You can also go in and handle approvals in this part, and I think that's really powerful, and we'll show you. Good. So now we get to the demo time. I really enjoy doing demos. I think it's a lot more fun than slides. I hope you agree, and if you have questions, comments, something I'm missing, something that doesn't make sense, please click on the Q&A box and add it, and then I'll try to cover that also. Yes. Okay. Cool. Okay, good. So here we have the FIGAF tool. Right now it's running on my local environment, but obviously we do recommend you deploy it in your BTP environment because that just gives you the best scalability and the tightest integrations. You're reusing SAP's infrastructure for it, making it a lot easier to run. Okay. So the idea is, here we have an iflow, and we got a Jira request that we needed to do some modifications in this because it wasn't functioning properly. So as a developer, I do have an option here. I can navigate to an iflow. I can see we have the object here, and I have an integration object. Navigation is something you need to learn, and the idea here is I can go to my iflow and a test case, and I can actually run here. Oh, that's running on the different tenant. I just need to select it here. So this means I can actually run this specific test case, and I can see what's going on. And I can see here we actually have some different versions that's being deployed. But the benefit here is that since this is running, I can use the CPI helper, and I can see what is actually going on in this specific instance of the iflow. And as a developer, this gives me a lot of understanding about what the iflow is actually doing. I don't need to go to the business and say, can you please send this extra message or what's going on? Here you have all the places in one place, making it a lot easier for you to drill down and see what's going on. So I know here we have a script. We can obviously see what it is receiving, headers, bodies, etc. Good. But I wanted to make a modification to this script. So it is probably not the best script you have seen yet. But what of the interest that we have here is we have this open in the FIGAF button. We're getting via CPI helper, and the benefit here is we can then have our ID. That means we can take the test case we already created, and we can take one of the messages we have, and then we can actually run it, and this would run on the Integration Suite system. So that means we can actually use all of the APIs from the Integration Suite system, including partner directory, whatever you would need to simplify the journey. And yes, let's just make a modification here. So if we run, we can obviously also compare what's the differences between here, and we can see there's a difference on the properties. Good. So that seems like an okay idea. That probably fixes the problem. And then we just simply go in and say upload, and then it will upload this artifact into the iflow quite fast. And that means if I go here to the iflow and refresh it, we should see that this has been changed, and this makes it a lot easier. And obviously this was a dumb easy script, but having this capability to actually run it on the integration suite makes it a lot easier for you to manage the different landscapes. Good. So now if we have made a modifications where we need here, so the iflow is now in trace mode, and let's just also make a different change up here in the last header. A good value, this I guess is 225, and we will save it as a version, and then remember it's 41. We will deploy it, and we now need to inform FIGAF that there's a new version of this iflow, and we can do that by clicking synchronize, which will then take and synchronize this into the FIGAF tool first, and if we have connected a Git repository too, it would also connect it and upload it to the Git repository, giving us full access to all the packages that we have in it. So if you want to do full text search, etc., see where you're doing certain scripts, that is a way to go for these things. Okay, so now we can see that the iflow has changed. We can see this one has also a revision. We can go in and we can see the different versions here. So the previous one was just a draft that we uploaded, but we can go in here and do a comparison. We can do it with BPDiff viewer. So if it's Groovy code or code, you can do it with this one. Here you can see precisely what was changed with these things. And we can also do it with BPMN viewer. And this is really powerful, because then you can drill down and see, hey, this was the precise area that we made a change in. Without the FIGAF tool to manage these changes, versioning becomes almost impossible. You would need to switch back between the different versions and select and see what the differences are, and hopefully you can find it, but most likely it's not possible, and that's where this visual presentation makes sense. Yes. Questions on this? Just open the chat box, and then you can ask some questions in the Q&A. Okay. So now we have made our changes, and we have a number of options to move it into our productive system. The one I generally prefer is to use so obviously if it's just on iflow, we could do it from this previous screen, but the best place to do it is this overview here. So here I can see my full landscape. I can see all the artifacts, all the things that is being deployed. I can go in and I can show differences between the QA and the production. So I can see in our simulated production, we are in this version. We can see here it says starting. Here we can see that there is a design time version that's different than deploy time version. And we also have one of this one. I think this is also pretty cool. So here we can see that some of the different versions that we have saved in the configuration versus what's actually deployed is different. This is really powerful, and one of the things that you would really see how well your governance process is actually working. Do you remember to press deploy each time you make a modification, or just save? With this you can see it, making it a lot more visible what's going on. Okay. That was dumb. Okay, so we're now just looking for one package. We can go in here. We can create a ticket for the transport. And here we will then put in our GUI ID for this specific reason. It's not doing any checks on this, it's just an information field, so you can refer to it, you can add a URL, so you can link to GRR or whatever you're using. It's not that important. The important thing is that you have it. And what we can then see here is we have this iflow that's being added. We can attach all the dependent object, then it will figure out, so we have a package. It will also look for script collections, not necessarily value mappings, but a lot of other artifacts that is could be related to something like this. So script collections, etc. That would be added, and I think we also have a password here that's being added to this. So the next part of this is I would go in and I would take the test case that I have created, and what I can then do is I can take this test case, I can run it on my system here, and this would ensure that I always have valid test results. I can prove that even though we have a scenario, it works, and we can see precisely what is being changed. So as a part here, I have the testing result. I can go in and view the test case here. I can see that the message was sent, and I can see that there's some errors here or differences, and we can see if it was XML payload. We can go in and ignore certain fields. If you have timestamps, etc., you can just go in and ignore those. And here we can see that this was actually changed, which was obviously correct, so we can just go in and say ignore to this parameter. But that would anyway somehow be wrong, because I guess now it is important that is this 335. So let's just for now ignore error 5. And what we can then do is we can go in and compare all these scenarios again, and that means it'll do all the different checks again. And I think we just have one error here at the end event where we have an other difference. So that would be a way we could go through this and ignore the different elements that we have. And then the last thing we need to do is just go in here, delete this. So we don't want it to be a problem that error 5 is working, but we want to be able to ensure that next time we are running this test case, this is what we are getting. So we have here an option that says update test cases, and this would just enable us to run this again and thereby have the option to see everything is being processed correctly as a part of this transport process. Obviously, we should have added all the different iflows that we have, or all the different test cases, because they should probably cover something differently, and that should be a part of the transport process. Okay. This will take a little while for it to process, but I guess not so important. The next thing is we want to create the transport. So now we have, as a developer, we have figured out what is it that we need to do. What's the important thing here? And now as a developer, I can see what is my goal here. We can see the last test status is missing. Hopefully it will be updated once the test is run successfully. But the main thing about a transport, and that is the thing that you need to check, that your configuration of this when you're moving from dev to QA to production is aligned, that you have set up everything correctly. And here we have the different configurations that we can see. We can see some of these have been automatically replaced, so this would be really useful when you have S4 host names that you know from dev. It's called D100. In QA it's called QAS 500 or whatever it is. If you add it in here, you don't need to remember it, whenever you do transport, because it would be automatically replaced, making it a lot easier for you to handle these things. And obviously we can go in and change things manually if we want to. We can see the passwords that have been set up, and it will do a check if this password exists on this given tenant. And yeah, we can decide. So some of these have been transported before, which makes it that it will use the value from dev versus the value from QA. So it's also all about which of them. If you're starting out, you just say inherit from source. It's when you are moving something that already exists, you don't want to overwrite it, and therefore we have this inherit from source, inherit from target part of it. So we'll press save, and we can do a reload just to see if everything's considered up correctly. It seems like it. So this is me as a developer. I also have an option here to do to check the design time, the design guidelines from SAP to see what's going on. Is this correct? And if they had been skipped inside of the SAP tool, you would see who skipped it and why. So obviously this is important to just go through and see, is this correct? And we can do a lot of extra validations on this. You can also be able to see the result of a pipeline run in this if you have set up pipelines for this. We can also go in and compare what's the difference between this and the QA, the one we have in Q&A, and we can see here there's some differences between the two parts that we are transporting. Some of them, yeah, so we obviously have this one here that we had, and sometimes it is adding some extra elements, or we have some changes in the elements. That's why it's really nice to have it in visual. If we can obviously do the same here with the comparison of the div to HTML, which is the code version. And if you look at this, you'll probably see that there's way too many changes in it. So it's really difficult to see what's the important part of it. But here we can see our code change in it. Okay. As a developer, my job is done. And we can also see here the testing result is now successful, which is really good. So that means I can send it to approval. And now I'm also approver. You should obviously not approve your own stuff. It is always good to have a 4i principle, and the tool does support that. But just for demo purposes, it's just easier this way. So as an approver, I have these options. I can still use the decide guidelines. I also have one thing that I really enjoy. This is this browse BPMN model viewer. And here you can search for all things that is being done, where you're setting certain criteria inside of content. So you can see we are using this demo for something, word here, and we also have externalized parameters. This is really nice. And here you can go in and say we are not using this key, new key anywhere. Let's ask the developer to remove it. They can create a new transport at first with this, because the less parameters we need to transport, the better, the easier it becomes. Because right now I would then consider, so what should new key be configured with, and that will just add a lot of explosion of content. So that gives you a good way also to look at the configuration, see what's possible. I can approve it. Yay! Or rejected, then the developer will get a note saying, hey, this is rejected and this is the reason. And now I can actually just go and import this into my target system, making it easier to handle these scenarios. So that was actually the transport process from dev to QA. So I guess another question is, can this be installed on a CPI Lite? I guess you're meaning a trial instance of the FIGAF tool. Yes, so you can install this on, and we'll share a link later for how to install it. There I'm using a CPI B2B trial account and using that for installation. We also support Neo, support all versions, so it makes it really easy to work. And yeah, the success factor one, as long as they are normal CPI tenants, there should not be a problem running these things. And we also have, when you're going to migrate into Integration Suite, we do have the same transport tool that you can use to transport, and in that way it makes it a lot easier for you to migrate everything. Probably in a day you can migrate everything. Then it's up to you to go in and configure all the different artifacts that's being set up here. Good, yeah. So we are getting a problem with the OData password that was not maintained correctly in the FIGAF tool, but I guess that's anyway okay. Yes. And then from my landscape overview, I can now go in and I can see it is different from the so here we have this thing about, we have added a QA in front of it. The same with HTTP URLs will also be deployed in the different scenarios. I guess there's something about some different parameters that should be checked. And we can also see what's going on. And if we wanted to, we can create a transport of these two artifacts into the productive system. So we can do these kind of batch systems, transport, and then release it. So that would be kind of the way that this could function on, enabling you to explore these things. Questions? Click on the question box on the bottom of the screen and put in your questions, and I'll try to answer those. But that was basically how we see that the transport process can be simplified for these things. We do have some monitoring tools or an alerting tool that simplifies the way you're dealing with errors. And the idea is here you can go in and easily create different rules about, if we are getting this content in, how do we deal with it? We can then set it up and create a rule that would be triggered, send information. So we'll just go in and select create rule. It will come up and we can send we are getting this rule, send it to a specific person, and that would be a fully functioning way of handling all these things. And then we have tons and tons of reports underneath this that can simplify some of these workflows. I think that what I wanted to cover in this session. I think Monday I covered something about developer happiness or well-being. I think it's really an important topic, because a lot of times, I felt it, was this thing that we as integration developer just get, hey, this is the template that worked for documenting ABAP or something else. It's like, it doesn't make sense, and that is part of the reason why we would need some better ways to work on this. I guess something on this topic about what is it that is frustrating you with your current processes would be interesting to know. So please check the ones that you think is a little of a challenge in your current scenarios. You can check multiple ones in this. I would obviously love to hear this. But I think there's all this disconnect about what is it that we are supposed to be doing, who is making what, how are all the processes related into each other. And I just think that there's too many gaps, a lot of documentation that you are creating that doesn't link to iflows. So you are saying you are doing this, but no one would be able to find out what's going on and why these things has been changed. we have all of these different links, so you can go back and see all traceability about something that has been changed, see who did it, why they did it, almost yeah, everything that is in place. And obviously, yeah, a lot of you are answering a lot of manual steps, and I think when we're talking about this, that you have this thing that it works for ABAP, so why shouldn't it also work for Integration Suite? It's the same SAP tool that we're using for it, but yeah, it is a little different. So let me just publish 2 seconds more. I'll just take the next slide also. And I guess a little on this. So you have a lot of manual steps on your transport. A lot of you were doing file-based transports, and obviously it works. You can pretty quickly move things to production, but what are you actually moving? Do you actually know what you're moving? Would someone else be able to see why you did this later on? And if you're just looking at some of these things, like how much time are you spending on some of these things that we can improve? So we showed here how to write Groovy. The same thing works for accessibility, function libraries. All of that can be included in one way of delivering the integration. How do you validate this with your team, partners, and processes? And if you save 20% of your time and were 10% more productive, what would that actually mean for you? So let me just, did I stop the vote? Or I guess the result is done. Published. So now it's done. We'll publish it. Cool. Thanks for applying. And yeah, the question we always get is, yes, our organization is using Cloud ALM or something else for all the other transports. Can we also use this in FIGAF? And yes, we do have a large number of APIs, webhooks, everything that you need to build this into your process. And I think that is quite important, that you can support all of these scenarios. Making so you can add that whenever you do a transport, you just put in the external ID would be the transport number in Cloud or CTS Plus or whatever, and then you can call a webhook with CTS Plus, and then you'd actually be able to import or whatever you need from these things. It's possible. I would not recommend that you start out with this. I would recommend that you figure out, okay, so what is it how does the FIGAF tool work? How does it work with our transport? What are all the processes in place with our transport, so we can become much faster about delivering this? And once you have that up and running, integrate it into your existing process. But not just know that it's there, not start doing it before you know what's really important. I would definitely recommend that you get started today. We have this video, and I think it will also come into the Q&A chat where you can see this. This is a video where I show you in 3 different videos. One, how to install the tool, how to use it for migration, and how to set up the DevOps process. If you spend 4 hours on this, you can get it up and running, and you would be able to show what this transport process would look like and how you can deliver integration faster. And I can see a lot of questions have been asked, so put them into the Q&A. But if you have a couple of hours, this would be the steps that I would want you to do. Go to the site. It's in the Q&A. Sign up, and if you have problems, just put it into the chat, and we can get you started with it. You can run it either on a laptop or in your BTP tenant. BTP trial is also possible. Create some test cases. Create transport, use the Groovy ID, see how it works. Also, maybe check out the monitoring. There's a lot of nice stuff in there that makes the process a lot easier. Yes, let me just take the last one. I would definitely recommend that you get started now. Here says 2 hours, 4 hours. It depends. Yeah, obviously depends on some of the challenge that you find, how much in depth you want to go with this. But obviously being able to prove to your team, showing this is the process we can work on, would make it a lot easier for you to prove the business case to the organization, and thereby saying, okay, if we use this to handle our transport, it'll be a lot easier, and you can start saving hours when you are doing these things. So I guess there's never going to be a better time. I guess this thing about planting a tree, the best time to plant a tree was 30 years ago. And the second best time is now. And I think it's the same thing with this. The sooner you get the ability to use this, the better. So that was what I wanted to cover to you. I hope you sign up for our trial, you explore it, what's possible, you get some more insight on. If there's something we're missing, reach out and schedule a call and we can cover it, how it would also work for you. And obviously, if you're an SAP partner, there is a lot of similar things that would work on top of these things. Okay, let me try to cover some of these things that I've asked. So there is a question on transport management using GitHub. So the thing with this would be that we did try to use the Gradle plugins also on our systems on a Azure pipeline. So I think you may be able to find that or Azure DevOps tool. But the challenge is this thing about you would just approve a Git request that doesn't link to anything else. So in general, I would think that the better approach is to use the GitHub tickets or whatever you're using to handle these things. Let FigAff publish all iflows into your Git repository, and then just approve the tickets in your Git repository. Set up webhooks that whenever you're creating a ticket or approving a ticket, that it imports it into the FigAff tool, or set the FigAff tool to import. So that is the better process also. Post transport. Yes, I think this is a quite important topic also. So whenever you're transporting with SAP's transport tools, you need to go in and apply configuration and then deploy. With the FigAff tool, you can go in on a landscape and say, after import or after transport, start deployment, because we have already configured all the different parameters, all the different settings that you need. They are already ready for you to deploy. So we should deploy it instead of waiting until a specific point in time in doing these things. We also have an option for you to batch deploy a number of iflows or undeploy them in the landscape overview, making it easier for you to manage these scenarios.